Usually when we talk about being successful uh, in life or business, there's this underlying expectation that it all comes down to hard skills.
Right. The tangible stuff.
Exactly. You think of like engineering or accounting. You learn the software, you memorize the formulas, and
And boom, you're certified.
right. But then, you step out of the classroom and into the actual real world, the human jungle, and suddenly that neat little equation is just, well, it's completely broken.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge wake-up call for a lot of people.
Because the person who gets the promotion or lands the massive client isn't always the one with the highest IQ or like the most pristine technical training.
No, not at all. And it's actually the definition of a paradigm shift when you realize this.
Yeah.
Because we connect this to the bigger picture, the research is just staggering.
Yeah, the numbers are wild.
There are studies from the Carnegie Foundation showing that a massive 85% of your financial success is directly tied to your communication skills.
85%, that's...
I mean, let that sink in, right? Your ability to just deal with other human beings vastly outweighs your technical knowledge.
So today we are handing you, the listener, a master key to navigating that social and corporate jungle. We're doing a deep dive into Leil Lowndes' manual on human behavior, how to talk to anyone.
And it's such a fascinating source because it doesn't just rely on those tired old platitudes we've all heard a million times.
Right, like just be yourself or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, back in 1936, Dale Carnegie's advice to just smile and be interested was revolutionary. But today...
Yeah, the modern world is completely saturated with smiling sycophants.
Right. We need specific mechanics now. We don't just need to know what to do. We need the psychology behind it and exactly how to execute it in real time.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And I want to start with the moments before you even utter a single syllable.
Oh, the silent approach.
Yes. Because before you even walk up to someone, your body has already broadcasted this massive amount of data about your personality.
It's so true. We are biologically wired to make incredibly fast subconscious judgments. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism, really.
Within, what, 10 seconds?
10 seconds, yeah.
Oh.
People take an instant mental snapshot of you, and that image dictates how they treat you for a very long time. And it all starts with your smile.
But not the smile you're probably thinking of, right?
No, definitely not.
Because there's this concept in the book called the flooding smile, and it completely flips conventional wisdom on its head. The old advice is to just walk into a room and flash this bright, instant grin at anyone who looks at you.
Which is terrible advice, actually.
Right, because doing that robs you of your credibility. Instead, you're supposed to look at the person's face for just a split second. You pause, you soak in their persona, and then you let this slow, warm smile flood over your face.
And overflow into your eyes. What's so fascinating here is the psychology behind that tiny delay.
The split-second pause.
Yeah, because an instant smile feels canned. It feels like a reflex. Like the exact same generic smile you'd give to the mailman
Or a lamppost.
Exactly. But when you pause, take them in, and then smile, it convinces them that your smile is genuine and customized entirely for them.
It bypasses their superficial filter and hits them right in the ego.
It gives you this deeper, more sincere cachet.
I love the mechanics of that. Imagine walking into a networking event, you catch someone's eye, and instead of beaming like a deer in headlights, you just hold the gaze for a beat. Let the smile spread. It completely changes the power dynamic.
It really does. And speaking of the gaze, that brings us to the eyes. The concept of sticky eyes.
Oh, this is a great one. Instead of looking away the second someone finishes speaking, you maintain eye contact. I like to compare it to pulling a string of warm taffy.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right, your eyes are glued to theirs with this warm taffy, and when you finally do have to look away to check your phone or whatever, you do it ever so slowly, stretching that gooey string until it reluctantly breaks.
It broadcasts this visceral message of comprehension. It shows you're captivated by their thoughts, not just waiting for your turn to speak.
Oh, wait, I have to push back a little here. I hear you on the theory, but in practice, isn't there a razor-thin line between captivated listener and, like, serial killer stare?
Oh, for sure. It's a highly valid concern.
How do we not make someone want to call security? Can't intense staring just come off as aggressive or creepy?
It requires nuance, because intense eye contact actually triggers a profound biological reaction. It increases their heartbeat and shoots an adrenaline-like substance through their veins.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the exact same physical reaction people have when they fall in love or, to your point, when they face a predator.
So context is everything.
Context is what tips the scale. You have to be deeply aware of cultural context and personal boundaries. There's this story in the source material about a Haitian housekeeper, Zola.
Oh, right, the soul-seeing story.
Yeah, she was terrified of intense eye contact
Right.
because in her culture, she felt like staring was a way of seeing her soul. So while sticky eyes is a powerful tool for intimacy, you absolutely have to read the room.
You combine it with warm body language and the flooding smile so it's interpreted as empathy, not an interrogation.
Exactly.
And speaking of reading the room and body language, we have to talk about limiting the fidget. Because nothing destroys credibility faster than scratching your nose or shifting your weight constantly.
The evidence on this is undeniable. Just look at the 1960 televised debate between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy.
Such a classic example.
Nixon had recently been hospitalized, he refused makeup, he was sweating, but more importantly, he was mopping his brow, shifting around, looking profoundly uncomfortable.
While Kennedy was completely composed and still.
Right, and political pundits argue heavily that Nixon's fidgeting cost us the election. When communication really counts, hand motions near your face give your listener the subconscious gut feeling that you're fibbing.
Or that you just lack confidence. It's visceral. When you watch someone fidget, you physically feel anxious for them.
You really do.
Okay, so we look confident. Our nonverbal cues establish us as a somebody. But eventually, we actually have to open our mouths. How do we break the ice without face planting?
You have to execute a mood match. Before you try to change someone's mood or bring up a new topic, you absolutely must match their current tone and pace.
See of it musically, right?
Yeah. Is your listener in a slow, melancholic adagio or a hyper-energetic allegro? You take a voice sample of their state of mind and match it, at least for the first few sentences.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's exactly like jumping onto a moving treadmill. If that treadmill is going 6 miles an hour and you just step onto it from a standstill.
You fly right off and hit the wall.
Exactly. You have to get your legs moving at the same speed first. And there's this hilarious but honestly painful anecdote in the book about being stuck in a slow elevator with a group of Mensa members.
Oh, it's the perfect example of a mood mismatch. So the author was exhausted, feeling incredibly lethargic, just staring blankly at the elevator doors.
And the elevator is barely moving.
Crawling. And suddenly, these high IQ Mensa members enthusiastically ambush her. They start aggressively bombarding her with these hyper-energetic, fast-paced facts about the structural engineering of the elevator's railguard alignment.
Oh my God, just entirely focused on their own intellectual excitement.
And completely ignoring her exhausted physical state. Because they didn't match her slow, tired pace first, it didn't feel like a friendly conversation. It felt like an aggressive assault.
They completely flew off the treadmill. If they had just sighed, slumped their shoulders a bit, and said slowly like, wow, this elevator is crawling today, she would have felt seen.
And then they could have gently transitioned into the cool engineering facts.
Right. So once we match the mood, we need an actual topic. And the suggestion here is to always wear a what's it.
A what's it, yes.
Yeah.
Which is any unusual item. A vintage pin, a strange tie, a wildly colorful scarf.
Basically something that gives strangers a socially acceptable excuse to approach you.
Exactly. It lowers the barrier to entry so someone can just walk up and ask, hey, what is that? Instant, friction-free icebreaker.
And if you're the one making the approach and they aren't wearing a what's it, you use the who's at trick.
Which is going to the host of the party, pointing out the person you want to meet, and asking for a few specific facts about them.
But you don't just get their name. Which brings us to a major unbreakable rule. Never the naked introduction.
Never. A naked name is a total conversation killer. Imagine the scene. John, meet Susan. Susan, John.
And now they're just standing there, staring at each other, panicking.
Desperately scanning their brains for a topic. You always have to bait the conversational hook.
So you say something like, Susan, I'd like you to meet John. John has a wonderful sailboat we took a trip on last summer.
Boom. Now Susan has an immediate, natural question to ask John, and the panic is gone.
It's a mercy to both parties, really. We've all been there with the sweaty palms and the awkward silence. Okay, so we've broken the ice. We're chatting. But there's a massive difference between making polite small talk and making someone feel like a VIP.
Oh, huge difference.
How do we cross that bridge and forge subliminal similarity?
You achieve that by making the other person feel like they are the absolute center of the universe. There's a technique called the swiveling spotlight.
Imagine a giant glowing spotlight in the room.
Yes, and when you speak, you manually swivel that spotlight so it shines directly on them, not on you. The longer you keep the spotlight on their life and their interests, the more fascinating they will find you.
It's the ultimate irony. You steer that spotlight using a linguistic trick called communication.
So simple, but it changes the entire dynamic.
Instead of starting your sentences with I, you start them with you. Instead of saying, I think this is a great restaurant, you say, you will love this restaurant.
Right. Or instead of, I have a question, you brought up a great point, and it makes me wonder, it pushes their pride button directly.
Because everyone's favorite radio station is YOA FM, right?
Yeah.
What's in it for me?
Exactly. And it saves them the mental energy of having to translate your statement into how it affects them.
Now, to keep that spotlight firmly on them, there's a technique called parroting. You literally just repeat the last few words your conversation partner says with a questioning inflection.
Just to keep the ball in their court.
But wait, I have to ask, doesn't parroting make you sound like a repetitive robot? Like, if I just keep repeating the last 3 words you say, aren't you going to think I'm mocking you?
It sounds like it would be incredibly obvious and annoying, but in the natural flow of conversation, it acts as a gentle, almost invisible nudge. It signals, I am listening, tell me more.
There's that story about the car salesman named Paul that illustrates this perfectly.
Oh, yes. The Lamborghini story. So a customer comes onto the lot looking at sensible 4-door sedans and mumbles, I'm not sure it fits my personality.
Now, a bad salesman would say, well, I have this other sedan over here.
Right. But Paul just parrots, fits your personality.
And the customer pauses and says, yeah, maybe I need something a little more sporty.
And Paul parrots again, a little more sporty.
And suddenly, the customer looks across the lot and realizes he actually wants a Lamborghini. Just by echoing those last few words, Paul magically uncovered the hidden desire and pocketed a massive commission.
It's brilliant. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this shift from I to you is actually a documented marker of psychological health.
Really?
Yeah, there's a fascinating study cited in the book. Patients in mental institutions use the words I and me 12 times more often than people in the outside world.
Wow, 12 times.
And as their condition improves and they become more tethered to reality, the number of personal pronouns diminishes and they begin using you more often.
That is profound. I is literally the language of isolation, and you is the language of connection.
Exactly.
Wow.
But we can take this even deeper, because to forge an unbreakable bond, you have to prove you perceive the world exactly the way they do.
Which brings us to echoing. This goes beyond just parroting. It's about adopting their specific vocabulary.
If they call their line of work a profession, you better not call it a job.
If a pharmacist refers to their workplace as a pharmacy, you never call it a drugstore. But why are we being so meticulous about this? Isn't it just being polite?
No, it's practically a survival mechanism. This raises an important question about how human beings form tribes. Evolutionary psychology tells us we're wired to trust the in-group and fear the out-group.
So when you echo their words,
Hearing their own arbitrary choice of words coming out of your mouth bypasses the brain's threat detection system. It creates profound subliminal rapport. It proves, on a subconscious level, that you share their worldview.
you're speaking their dialect.
You're one of them.
And you can take this even further by matching their primary sensory language using what the author calls anatomically correct empathizers.
Right, because people process the world primarily through sight, sound, or feeling, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic.
There's a great example of Brenda, the tap dancer. She grew up in a dark, below-ground apartment in New York City, so her whole world was defined by the sounds of street noise and sirens above her.
She is a deeply auditory person.
Right, so if Brenda is explaining a complex situation to you, you shouldn't say, I see what you mean, because that's visual language. You should say, I hear you, or that sounds great.
You have to tune into their sensory channel.
Yeah.
If a highly visual person says, I just can't picture that, you respond with, let's look at it from another angle.
Or if they're kinesthetic, feeling-oriented, and they say, I have a bad gut feeling about this, you reply, I can grasp how you feel.
You're literally speaking the language of their nervous system.
I challenge you, the listener, to start hunting for these sensory clues tomorrow. Listen to the verbs your boss or your partner uses, match them, and watch the walls come down.
It works like magic.
Okay, let's pivot to the ultimate tool in communication, praise. We all know praise is powerful, but direct, face-to-face flattery usually sets off major alarm bells.
It does, because direct flattery triggers our defensive mechanisms. We immediately suspect a hidden agenda, like you're buttering me up to ask for a favor.
So we have to praise safely, and the first strategy is grapevine glory.
Which is so clever because it completely disarms the skepticism. Instead of complimenting someone to their face, You praise them behind their back to someone you know will pass it on.
You tell Jane's best friend that Jane gave a brilliant presentation. It's guaranteed to get back to Jane.
And when it does, it carries zero suspicion. If I compliment you directly, you wonder what I want. If I compliment you behind your back, it's just pure, credible truth.
And you can flip that dynamic by being a carrier pigeon of kudos. Whenever you hear a genuine compliment about someone, you act as the carrier pigeon and deliver it to them.
Hey, John was just telling me how impressed he was with how you handle that client.
Mm.
You instantly become associated with the joy of that good news.
Now, if you do want to praise someone directly, without a middleman, there's accidental adulation.
This is great. You sneak the praise into the parenthetical part of your sentence.
So instead of saying you are so incredibly fit, which feels awkward and heavy-handed, you say, because you are so fit, you probably didn't even notice that steep climb.
The main point is the climb, but you've accidentally dropped a massive compliment in their lap. It bypasses their critical filter completely.
Yeah, they don't have time to put their guard up because their conscious brain is busy responding to the main point about the climb.
Exactly.
Now, for close relationships, there is the ultimate compliment technique, the tombstone game.
Yes, the deep stuff.
You ask your partner or a close friend what they would want written on their tombstone. You find out what they're most proud of. Maybe it's, he was a man of his unwavering word.
And you lock that exact phrasing away in your brain.
And weeks later, you feed that exact phrase back to them as a compliment. You say, I just love how you always keep your word. But I have to admit, the hair on the back of my neck stands up a bit with this one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The tombstone game sounds a little manipulative. Are we just hacking people's egos to make them like us more?
It's a fair pushback.
Yeah.
When we talk about techniques, it can definitely sound like manipulation, but we need to reframe how we look at this. It isn't manipulative because it requires genuine, sustained care.
Okay, how so?
It's the ultimate form of active listening. You're taking the time to discover the very core of how this person wishes to be seen by the world. When you reflect that back, you aren't hacking their ego. You're validating their deepest sense of self.
Finding that incredibly tender spot where the heart and the ego blend.
Exactly. In a world where everyone is shouting about themselves, remembering how someone wants to be remembered is a profound act of love and respect.
That is a beautiful way to look at it. It's paying deep, intentional attention to the people around you. So think about the journey of a single interaction we've mapped out today.
From the very first 10 seconds.
Right. We start by mastering the silent approach, letting the delayed flooding smile and the taffy-like sticky eyes do the heavy lifting, proving our confidence by keeping our hands still.
We transition smoothly onto their treadmill by matching their mood.
We use a what's it to break the ice effortlessly and bait the hook so no one is left stranded in a naked introduction.
From there, we forge subliminal similarity, shining the swiveling spotlight entirely on them.
Utilizing communication, echoing their exact vocabulary and sensory language to prove we are part of their tribe.
And finally, delivering validation that actually bypasses their defenses using grapevine glory and accidental adulation.
The biggest takeaway here is that excellence in human relations isn't one giant, solitary action. You don't just win a conversation. It's the outcome of practicing these tiny, smooth, intentional moves in the social jungle every single day.
And to leave you with one final provocative concept from the source to chew on, there is a dynamic at play in every interaction called the Great Scorecard in the Sky.
The invisible scorecard.
Yes. In every meeting, networking party, or family dinner, there is an invisible scorecard hovering above you. It dictates who owes deference to whom based on favors done, social standing, who has helped who lately, and who holds the power in that specific room.
And it's constantly fluctuating based on how you communicate.
Always shifting.
So the next time you walk into a room, before you speak, before you even deploy that customized flooding smile, I want you to really look around. Try to see those invisible scorecards floating above everyone's heads and ask yourself, what's my score today?